Okay, so we are by V'neyavem L'tareo Misha Haya Nasui. Right, so it's Mem Dalet Amud Aleph. First word on the line, Misha Haya Nasui. So we said in the Mishnah that if somebody was married to two women and he dies, so the yibum that's done, or chalitza that's done to one wife, covers the tzara. So the Gemara says, "V'niyabem letarvayu." Why can't you do yibum to both? How do you know he can't do yibum to both? This Gemara is very basic fundamentals of Yevamot. You know, it should have been like the first daf. But okay, we have to wait till 40 daf plus to get to this. But niyavem letarvayu. Why don't you do yibum to both? So Amar Bichia Bar Abba Amar Yochanan Amar Kra. It says in the pasuk, Asher lo yivne et beit achiv. Okay. Yeah, it says that the person who, he doesn't build the household of his father. Somebody who chooses to do chalitza, he's lo yivne et beit achiv. What do you see from this pasuk? What's the significance? Boker Tov. So bait echad hu boneh ve'ein boneh shnei batim. It says et beit achiv, singular, one household. He builds one household for his brother that passes away, not two. So he only does yibum to one of the wives of the brother, not more. So the Gemara says, okay, fine, that's for yibum. I understand. His brother has multiple wives, he only does yibum to one. But v'nachlotz letarvayhu, why doesn't he do chalitza to both of them? Maybe if he's doing chalitza, he should do chalitza to both of them. So the Gemara says, Amar Mar Zutra, Bar Tuvia, Amar Kra, it says in the pasuk, Beit Chalutz Hanal. Again, someone who does chalitza is called Beit Chalutz Hanal, singular, Beit. So Beit Echad hu choletz, ve'ein choletz shnei batim. Similar drasha, that he does chalitza on one household and not on two. So Yibum, he only does on one wife. Chalitza, he only does on one wife, and that takes care of everybody else. So now, the Gemara, the Bach adds in some words over here. He adds in, the little bet adds in words that says, V'nachlot l'chada v'neyabem l'chada. Why don't we do chalitza to one and do yibum to another? Meaning, first do chalitza to one and then do yibum. So the Gemara says you can't do that. Why? Amar Kra shelo yivne kevan shelo bana shul v'lo yivne. Once he refuses to do yibum, he loses his chance to do yibum. Once he does a chalitza, that's it. He's done. He can't do yibum anymore. So the Gemara says, okay, other way around. Like back in the Gemara, v'niyavem lechada v'nachlotz lechada. Why doesn't he do yibum first to one, and then do chalitza to the other one? So Amar Kura, it says in the pasuk, im lo yachpotz. It says that when does he do chalitza? If he doesn't want to do yibum. But hachafetz yibem. But chalitza is only in a place where if he wanted to, he could do yibum. So what do you see from there? That kol ha'oleh yibum oleh chalitza. Right? We've had this multiple times. Whoever is shayach to yibum is shayach to chalitza. Meaning, if yibum is applicable to that person, then chalitza is applicable. And kol she'en oleh yibum ein oleh chalitza. But if someone cannot have yibum done to them, they cannot have chalitza done to them. So over here, when someone does chalitza when someone does yibum to one lady, he cannot do he doesn't do chalitza to the other lady because he can't do yibum to the we're talking about two wives of one husband. So when he does yibum to one wife, he cannot do yibum to the other one.
Yeah.
Since he cannot do yibum, she doesn't need chalitza either.
Even donor sister.
They're two wives of the same brother. They're tzarot. So once he does either yibum or chalitza for one of them, that covers the tzara. That's the halacha we learned in the Mishnah. Does yibum to one, covers the tzara. Or he does chalitza to one, it covers the tzara. Now the Gemara is going through the drashot of how we know this. Ve'od, and the Gemara says another reason why he doesn't do yibum to one and chalitza to the other of the same husband is the same brother. People shouldn't say that, you have a household here, half of it he's building, half of it he's doing chalitza, half of it is yibum, half chalitza. So the Gemara says, let them say that, who cares? Let people say that, what's the problem? So Gemara says, no, you're right. If he does first yibum and then chalitza afterwards, you're right. Who cares about the chalitza afterwards? It's not doing anything. So Ella dilma chalitz v'adam yavim. The problem is that he might do chalitza first and then afterwards do yibum. Meaning doing yibum first and then doing chalitza is not like the chalitza is not doing anything. Like you're not really accomplishing anything. There's no problem with that. The problem is if you do yibum to one lady and do chalitza to the tzara, you might come to do chalitza first and then yibum to the tzara, and that's a problem because you cannot, once you do chalitza to anyone in that household, any one of the tzarot, you can't do yibum to any of the other wives.
Choose which one
you can't do. What?
You could choose.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
You're gonna get the first one that you got married with.
Not necessarily, no. I don't think so. I believe so, yeah. Okay. And if he does that, if he does chalitza first, so he's gonna be there's gonna be an isur of lo yivneh that he's not allowed to be with any of the wives after doing chalitza. Okay, so the Gemara says ve'ema ki'ika chada titkayem mitzvat yibum ki'ika tarti lo titkayem mitzvat yibum. So once we're saying okay bayit echad, there's only one. He only does yibum to one wife or does chalitza to one wife. So maybe what the Torah is telling us is really that chalitza and yibum are only applicable when the brother had one wife. Maybe if the brother has multiple wives and he passes away, there's no yibum, no chalitza. Maybe the whole parsha of yibum and chalitza is talking about a brother had one wife. Now why would we think that? Because the whole parsha is written in singular. It says, Asher lo yivneh et beit achiv, or beit chalutz hanal. It's all talking about one household, which we're understanding means one wife. So maybe the whole idea of yibum in the Torah is when somebody is married to one wife. But if somebody is married to 2 or 3 wives and he passes away, there's no yibum. Maybe that's what the Torah is telling me by putting it in singular. So the Gemara says, no. You know how I know that's not true? If that's the case, we had a whole first perek about sarat erva, about if someone is married to the guy's daughter or whatever, some erva, and if the erva, since the erva is pitura from yibum, the tzara is pitura from yibum. Well, why do you need that? If anyways, anyone who's married to 2 wives, there's no yibum, so why do you need to tell me that sarat erva is pitura from yibum? Anyways, anyone who's married to 2 wives is pitura from yibum, right? Hashta shtayim ba'alma amarta lav b'nei chalitza v'yibum ninhu. Regular 2 wives, you're suggesting is there's no yibum or chalitza. Tzarat erva mibaya? Tzarat erva, you need to tell me that there's no yibum or chalitza? So the Gemara says, no. I do need to tell. Alama lo itzra stak dadach amina erva avrai kaime v'tityabem tzarata. By tzarat erva, I would have thought that the erva is external, meaning she's not included in this marriage as far as yibum is concerned because she's an erva. So I would have viewed it as if the brother was only married to the tzara, and the tzara should do yibum. Therefore, I need to teach me that tzarat erva is asura. So we're still suggesting, meaning so how do we know that yibum applies even when a person has multiple wives? The whole parsha of yibum is written in singular. Maybe yibum is only when the guy has one wife. So kamash mandas here, ella yivimto riba, because the pasuk says yivimto multiple times. It says v'niksha yivimto elav le'nei hazekenim, and then v'chaltza na'alo ma'al raglo. Different pasuk. It says v'im lo yachpotz ha'ish lakachat yivimto v'alta yivimto ashar. It says yivimto. Now that pasuk is kind of extra. It could have just said im lo yachpotz ha'ish lakachat et yivimto. If the guy doesn't want to take his yivama, so ve'alta hashara, she goes up to the gate of the city. Why does it say ve'alta yivimto? Again, it repeats yivimto. So the fact that it's repeating it shows even multiple yivamas require yibum or chalitza, meaning one of them.
What do you mean
one of them. Meaning, if a person is married to multiple women and he dies,
okay,
so the parsha of yibum is said even in such a case. don't say that it's only talking about when a guy is married to one wife, there's Yibum. But if he's married to 2 or 3 wives, there's nothing. Don't say that. It says Yevimto multiple times to teach me that even if the guy has multiple wives, you have to at least to one of them, because there's a singular, Bait Echad Hu Boneh, right? And Beit Chalutz Anal, Bait Echad Hu Cholitz. To one of them, he has to do either Yibum or Chalitza. Okay, Haita Achad Kshira. So the last thing we said in the Mishnah is if a man was married to 2 women, one of them was already Pisula to a Kohen, and one of them was not. And the guy dies. So a Kohen could marry one of his wives. She's an almana. The other one, she was already pisula to a Kohen. Let's say she was a grusha or a zona or some other type of psul to a Kohen. So if the brother wants to do chalitza, he should do chalitza to who? To the one who's already pasul to the Kohen, pisula to the Kohen. So Amar Rav Yosef, Kan Shana Rebbe, over here, Rebbe, who wrote the Mishnah, he taught us a very important idea. A person shouldn't dump out the water of his well when other people need it. Meaning sometimes for you it's trash and you throw it out, but other people need it. So this guy, he doesn't want to do yibum to any of it. He has enough wives. He doesn't want to do yibum to any of his brother's wives. So he wants to do chalitza. Okay, do chalitza to the one who is already going to be pisula to a Kohen anyways, not to ruin the other one for a Kohen. Okay. Hamachzir, next Mishnah. So this Mishnah is a little bit of a background of this Mishnah. We're going to later in the Masechet discuss what type of relationships create a mamzer. Okay? So there's 3 opinions. One opinion is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva holds mamzer is from chayvei lavin. Any isur lav, even a kohen with a grusha or whatever, would create a mamzer. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Okay. The other extreme is Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Yoshua says that only something which is chayav mitat bedin. Okay. So we have a bunch of arayot. Some of them have mitat bedin, some of them not. Right. So these are only things that are chayav mitat bedin. For example, a person's mother-in-law or skila, eshadish. Those make a mamzer. Rabbanan, Chachamim, they say this is the way we paskin. Anything that's chayav karet makes a mamzer. Any relationship there is a chiyuv karet. So that's all the things that are in Parshat Arayot, right? A mother-in-law, sister, daughter-in-law.
Mother-in-law is chayav mito?
I think mother-in-law is skila. I believe so, right? Either way, so
what would be karet and not chayav?
I believe achot isha, your wife's sister. There's actually in what's it called? Right. So in the thing that I handed out in the beginning, I wrote down which ones were karet and which ones were not. Okay. Either way, so that's just a bit of a background. So hamachzir grushato, somebody who he takes back his wife after she was with somebody else. So a guy was married, he divorced his wife. She was with somebody else. She got married to somebody else, and that marriage was terminated. And now they want to get back together. This guy takes back his wife. Va'noseh chalutzato, or somebody did chalitza to a lady, and then he turns around and marries her. Or va'noseh krovat chalutzato, or somebody marries the relative of his chalutza. He did chalitza to a lady, and he marries her sister. Now, this really doesn't belong on this list because it's only D'Rabbanan, as far as we know.
Because it's not arayot.
It's D'Rabbanan. So the Gemara is going to get into what is this doing on this list. So, Yotzi v'havlad mamzer, divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says all of these cases, we force him to divorce, we force him to get out of the relationship, v'havlad mamzer. And the child is a mamzer. So from machzir grushato, from taking back his wife that he divorced after she was married to somebody else, or from marrying a lady who he did chalitza with, or from marrying the sister of the lady he did chalitza with, all of those create a mamzer according to Rabbi Akiva. But Chachamim omrim, ein avlad mamzer. Chachamim say that no, the child is not a mamzer, it doesn't create a mamzer. Umodim, but they agree benose krovat girushato, that if somebody marries the relative of the lady who he divorced, in that case, shavlad mamzer. Chachamim agree that the child is a mamzer, because over there, that's arayot deoraita. If he divorces a lady and marries her sister or her mother or whatever, those are that's erva deoraita. That's karet, right? You can't be with the sister or the mother of a lady who he divorced, who he was with. So that would be that would create a mamzer according to Chachamim. So the first thing the Gemara is going to jump on is the relative of the guy who he did chalitza to. What is that doing on this list? So v'savar Rabbi Kiva nosek krovat chalutzato avlad mamzer. The Gemara says, what? You're telling me Rabbi Kiva holds that somebody who he's together with the relative of a lady who he did chalitza with, the child is a mamzer. V'amar Reish Lakish kan shana Rabbi achot grusha midivrei Torah achot chalutza midivrei sofrim. We had before that Reish Lakish said that Rabbi teaches us from the Mishnah that this is only derabanan. The sister of a chalutza is derabanan. So why is Rabbi Kiva saying it creates a mamzer and you have to force them to separate? So the Gemara says, you're right. It's not really referring to krovat chalutzato. Tani krovat grushato. Rabbi Kiva really is talking about the relative of the lady who he divorced. His wife's, that he divorced sister. So the Gemara says, hachinami mistabra, and it even makes sense to say that. Dektani sefa umodim benose krovat grushato shavlad mamzer. So we agree by somebody who married krovat grushato that the vlad is a mamzer. So Chachamim at the end of the Mishnah, they say, oh, we agree to krovat grushato, to the sister of a grusha, that creates a mamzer. So it makes sense that that's what Rabbi Akiva was talking about. Right? Yamrid bishlama ayriba hainu modim. If you're going to tell me that's what Rabbi Akiva was talking about, krovat grushato, so that's what it means. The Chachamim say, oh, we agree to that. Ela yamrid lo ayriba mayu modim. But if Rabbi Akiva is talking about chalutza, and Chachamim are saying, oh, we agree by krovat grusha, what do you mean modim, we agree? The Rabbi Akiva wasn't talking about that you're agreeing to. Right? So Gemara says, no. V'dilma kamash malan de'esh mamzer chayvei kritut. Maybe Chachamim are coming to teach us, at the end of the Mishnah, that mamzer comes from chayvei kritut. Right? So Gemara says, no, hakatanila. We already learned that. Right? Ve'ezo mamzer, kol she'er basar shu b'lo yavod. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Shimon HaTemani Omer, Rabbi Shimon HaTemani is Chachamim, kol shechayavin alav karet b'dei shamayim. V'lacha kidvarav. So we already know from a different source that, right, from a different Mishnah, that Rabbi Kiva holds that a mamzer is created by chayvei lavin. And Shimon HaTemani, who's Rabbanan, holds that mamzer is created from chayvei karet. Anything that's karet creates a mamzer, and halacha is like Shimon HaTemani, like Chachamim. So the Gemara says, okay, v'dilma kasatim lantanik Rabbi Shimon HaTemani. Maybe over here Chachamim are saying we paskin like Shimon HaTemani. That's why they're saying krovat gerusha, meaning Rabbi Kiva really was talking about something else, and Chachamim are saying no, we agree only by chayvei kritut, and they're just using this example. So the Gemara says, Im ken lid nishar chayvei kritut krovat gerushato lamali. If that's the case, if you're telling me that really Rabbi Kiva is talking about being together with a relative of a chalutza, the chalutza's sister, he did chalitza to somebody and he married the sister of the chalutza. That's what Rabbi Kiva is talking about. And Chachamim, they're saying, okay, we don't accept that. What we do agree with is that chayvei kritut make mamzer. If that's what they're coming to say, why are they choosing an example of krovat gerushato? Why are they saying, oh, we agree by krovat gerushato, by the relative of the wife we divorced, that makes a mamzer? Why are they choosing that example? If all they're trying to get across is we paskin like Shimon HaTemani, that mamzer chayvei kritut creates a mamzer, why are they choosing that example? So Elish Mamina Ayriba. It sounds like it must be that they're choosing that example because that's what Rabbi Kiva was talking about. So Gemara says, Dilma le'olam lo ayriba. Maybe really Rabbi Kiva was not talking about krovat gerushato. He was talking really about krovat chalutzato. Rabbi Kiva is talking about all types of relationships that have to do with gerusha and chalutza. he's machzir grushato, he takes back his wife who he divorced, or he marries the lady who he did chalitza to, or he's together with the relative of the lady who he did chalitza to. Right? So tani nami krovat grushato. Therefore, he also includes krovat grushato. But chachamim, therefore chachamim, they say an example of krovat grushato because it fits the theme that Rabbi Akiva is talking about. But the point that they're trying to get across is that we hold mamzer is coming from chayve lavin. So the Gemara says from chayve kritut. Sorry. So the Gemara says ela krovat chalutzato Rabbi Akiva having mamzer. So the Gemara says whoa. So you're telling me krovat chalutza according to Rabbi Akiva is going to create a mamzer? Meaning, if a person does chalitza to a lady and then he's together with her sister, according to Rabbi Akiva, that's an isur deoraita that creates a mamzer. Meaning, according to Rabbi Akiva, as long as there's a lav, it creates a mamzer. But where do we find the lav for this? Right. So, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hainu ta'amad Rabbi Akiva. The following is the reason of Rabbi Akiva. Right. The Amar Kra, it says in the pasuk, Beit chalutz hanal. It says when a guy does chalitza, they call him Beit chalutz hanal. Okay, so what's the significance of that? Hakatuv kira'o beto. The Torah calls this person his beto, like keilu, like she was his wife. The guy who the guy who does chalitza to a lady, that lady who gets the chalitza, the Torah calls it beto. So it's as if beto. It's like his household. It's so since the Torah calls it beto, we give her the status ki'ilu almost as if she was like his wife, and therefore just like when he has a wife who he divorces, there's an isur deoraita on marrying her sister or her mother or her relatives, certain relatives, so too when he does chalitza to a woman, it's ki'ilu as if they were married and he divorced her, and mideoraita, Rabbi Akiva learns, he has an isur on her relatives. The relatives of the chalutza would be deoraita according to Rabbi Akiva, which is not like Rebbe, not like the Mishnayot that we've had in the past. Okay, really, I would like to go further. The only thing is I have to use the restroom before Shachrit. So we'll stop here. We'll see.